So, welcome. I'm Sherry Ryan. I'm the president here at Lynnwood-Alderwood Manor Heritage. And today we're going to visit our Lynnwood's historian, Betty Lou Gaeng. Before we start, though, I am going to read one of her writings. If you've been following along with Betty in Lynnwood Today, My Edmonds News, and Teresa, what's your Montlake Terrace one called?
MLT News.
MLT News. This is Teresa from those publications. And so Betty, well, she's done a lot, but the one I'm going to share with you today is growing up as a child of the Great Depression. So we're going to read that, and then I'm going to have Betty tell you about her next adventure in her life. I guess it's her next chapter. And then we'll have a chance that you can ask her maybe any questions you want. So be thinking of that. But so, looking back, growing up as a child of the Great Depression. Having been born in January of 1927, over 90 years ago, I am definitely a child of the Great Depression. What follows are some of my own memories of that never-to-be-forgotten decade, the 1930s. I was 2 years old in 1929 when this country's economy collapsed. Banks and businesses closed their doors. Once wealthy men who were now left with nothing took what they must have thought was the easy way out. They committed suicide. Family breadwinners stood in lines to find any kind of employment. Doctors, lawyers, college professors, bank presidents, engineers, or laborers, it didn't matter. As they joined the long lines looking for help, they were all equal. "Brother, can you spare a dime?" became a popular phrase. President Herbert Hoover's name became a reminder of the communities of shacks that sprang up in our cities, including Seattle. Named Hoovervilles, these makeshift communities erected by the poor and homeless were symbols of failed leadership. Leaving families behind, thousands of men rode the rails from town to town and state to state looking for some way to earn a bit of money to send home to their families, or sometimes just for their own survival. Many family breadwinners never returned to their homes again, some no doubt by choice and others from unexpected bad happenings. Parents found they could no longer feed and clothe their own children. Jimmy, a desperate 12-year-old Texas boy, put an ad in the Houston Chronicle pleading for someone to adopt him. Jimmy was one of the lucky ones. His plea was answered and he was legally adopted into a stable family. Jimmy's clever initiative gave him a family, a father, a mother, and 2 older siblings. He survived to live a long, successful life. With over 25% of the workforce unemployed, the year 1933 ushered in a time of deep despair. As a result, that year was the catalyst to bring about a new kind of government and a different kind of leader for America, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The Roosevelt years brought the federal government into our lives in a manner we'd never experienced before. Coming of age during the Roosevelt administration were the acronyms for government programs and departments, as well as our welfare system, and even our Social Security program. Many of these programs are still with us today as reminders of a once depressed country. For those of us who lived through those years, I'm sure we will always have memories of the despair and the actions by our leaders to stabilize a country mired in poverty and hopelessness. My father, having served in the army in France during World War I, came back from the war to attend art school in Chicago and Seattle. His plans were to become a commercial artist. In 1930, my father was employed at this trade in downtown Seattle for McDougall Southwick, a popular department store of that time which was located at 2nd and Pike. The 1930 census lists our family: my father, Walter Debach, my mother, Marie, my 2 older brothers, Walter Jr. and Robert. Also there I was, 3 years old. My father's work in his chosen field was not a wise one during hard times, and he soon joined the unemployment line. Our family was lucky in one way. We had a cushion that many did not have. Due to his service in World War I, my father received a monthly disability check of $50. What seemed a fortune in those lean years. With that money and his part-time work as a clerk at a market where Pike Place Market stands today, we were able to survive for a time. However, in 1933, when I was 6 years old, my parents decided they needed a major life change. At the market, my father met a representative for a food distribution company. His name was Herman Wickers. And in 1933, Mr. Wickers had purchased a grocery store in the community of Alderwood Manor, 15 miles north of Seattle. It was through this encounter in 1933 that my parents learned about the farms available at Puget Mill Company's planned community of Alderwood Manor. My father and mother evidently thought this was a good opportunity, and we became the owners of a 10-acre chicken farm on Manor Way in what was pretty much the wilderness part of Alderwood Manor, about 4 miles north of Herman Wickers' grocery store. What a bargain that was. For $10 down and $10 a month, we moved to an established, although long deserted farm. The land was covered with a lot of stumps and tree snags left over from the logging days. The so-called working farm was actually ugly, certainly not one of the pretty little farms often pictured in storybooks. However, there was an orchard with apple, plum, cherry, and pear trees, as well as a couple of filbert trees. There was a chicken house, a bubbling spring, and an artesian well. There was also an overgrown, long, unattended garden spot, as well as a root cellar near the house. The root cellar proved a treasure for preserving our winter supply of food. These homes were advertised as Puget Mill ranchettes. However, this house was very rustic, and there was no indoor plumbing. Also, we had no electricity. Actually, I've always thought of that particular house as a shackette. Our late floor model Philco radio sat silently in the corner, and our fancy up-to-date Electrolux vacuum cleaner was unused until the electric power lines finally reached our far-out stump farm. That welcome event finally happened through one of President Roosevelt's new bureaucracies, the REA, Rural Electrification Administration. This electrification project not only introduced electricity to the country's many rural farms, it put men to work. Our chicken house became home to about 130 chickens. We evidently had good laying hens, as we had plenty of eggs for the family as well as many to sell. We had some goats, one a mean-tempered billy goat. We learned to drink and even appreciate goat milk from our 3 nanny goats. However, we soon found that you should never turn your back on Mr. Billy Goat Gruff. He never gave a really hard push to the posterior region, but old Billy definitely let you know who he considered to be boss. Also, there was another lesson to be learned from the goats. On wash day, my mother's newly washed laundry, with the help of pulleys, hung high in the air, far out of reach of these strange animals who enjoyed chewing on just about any item within their reach. Having come from the big city of Seattle, we were learning to be farmers in the countryside of Alderwood Manor. As a special note, it would be many years before we would call it Lynnwood. Today, the Wickers grocery store building has been relocated to become part of the historic display at Heritage Park in Lynnwood. However, in 1939, the store was located on North Trunk West, today's 196 and 37 in Lynnwood. My father began working at Herman Wickers' store in 1933, delivering groceries for him. In addition, by bartering his artistic skills in painting the signage for the store, my father was rewarded with very welcome grocery items that we could not grow on the farm. My father's barter exchange plan worked with many other local businesses as well. In September of 1933, my 2 brothers and I became students at Alderwood Manor Grade School. For me, I entered first grade. That first year, we had to walk to Highway 99 about a mile to catch the bus, but the next year, it stopped right in front of our house. In May of 1934, we had a new addition to the family. My brother Tom was born. In December of 1935, my only sister Sally joined us. The walls of our shackette were beginning to bulge. When President Roosevelt began his many programs for putting people to work, these programs usually involved the type of work a person had been trained for. In Alderwood Manor, in 1935, when it was decided road signs were needed, my father was assigned to paint the first road signs in Alderwood Manor. I can still picture him with his many different brushes and paint jars, working on our large kitchen table, busily painting the rectangular signs white, and then carefully the names in black. I noted that the majority of the roads seemed to be named for trees. 4 years after we moved to Alderwood Manor, in the spring of 1937, I completed the 4th grade. Everything seemed to be going well. We were looking forward to another summer on the farm, and as for us kids, we were anxious to spend some time at our favorite swimming holes. Instead, our family had to face another challenge. My father had a serious medical problem. He was scheduled to go to the VA hospital in Portland, Oregon for an operation. My mother again was expecting, and she did not drive. We would not be able to stay on our remote farm. There was no choice except to let the land in our home go back to Puget Mill Company. All the plans for building of a new house and a productive garden that summer were for naught. My parents rented a house from the Brackett family in downtown Edmonds on the northwest corner of 4th and Daly, right across the street from what was then the red brick Edmonds High School. With the help of some good friends, we moved to our new home, and my father went to the hospital in Portland for an operation. That was really a tough time for our family. Not just the worry about our father's health, but also the fact that our steady income, his wartime disability pension, had been canceled. We learned that while he was in the VA hospital. But little money was left for, or Mom had enough for rent, but that little money was left for groceries. This was the first time during the Great Depression we had to take advantage of welfare. Even though my mother was only one of many waiting in line for basic food items, she was always embarrassed. It was a time in her life she never forgot. I enrolled in the 5th grade at Edmonds Grade School in September of 1937. The aim of the WPA and one of President Roosevelt's programs was to see that each school child had a good breakfast and lunch. In Edmonds, these meals were served in the clubhouse at the playfield south of the high school on 6th Street. The playfield with its tennis courts, clubhouse, and bleachers was newly built with funds also from the WPA. My brothers and I were part of a large group of children assigned to receive breakfast and lunch each school day. Those lines were long, and we patiently waited with many of our classmates for our meals. My father came home from the Portland hospital, and once again we had an income. The senior doctor, Harry Kretzler, was on hand as Don, my youngest brother, was born at our Edmonds home in September of 1937. The house in downtown Edmonds had only been a temporary rental, and we soon moved. Our new home was located on the southwest corner of today's 212th Street and Highway 99 at Seattle Heights. The land where our old residence was located is now occupied by Magic Toyota and is part of Incorporated Edmonds. For us, this was a handy spot. We were right across the street from Middleton's grocery store, which was also the school bus stop for those of us who attended school in downtown Edmonds. When they were of school age, my younger siblings were assigned to attend the Esperance grade school. The year was now 1938, and once again, our lives changed. We had stability during the last few years of the Great Depression. Our dependency on welfare was a thankfully short one. My father was assigned to undergo training at the new field office of the FBI in Seattle. He was sent there to learn the fledgling law enforcement procedure of identification through the use of fingerprints. He then became a deputy sheriff for Snohomish County and the sheriff's office first identification officer. With the many members of the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office today, it's hard to imagine in those days there were only 11 male officers and 1 woman deputy to cover the entire unincorporated area of Snohomish County. The deputies didn't wear uniforms, and the only cars provided were ones confiscated from raids on criminal activities. Mostly the deputies drove their own vehicles. The deputies wore business suits with their guns and holsters under their jackets. Looking back at those times, the Great Depression was certainly not easy for my parents, but they made sure that our family weathered the tough years and we stayed together. In 1940, the federal census listed our entire family. My father, Walter Debach, occupation Snohomish County Deputy Sheriff, my mother Marie, my older brothers Walter Jr. and Robert, me, age 13, brother Tom, sister Sally, and brother Don. Of 6 children in our family, just 3 of us are left today, but by many years I am the oldest. My sister Sally and youngest brother Don also survived. During 2003, 66 years after my family moved to Edmonds from Alderwood Manor, I moved back to live what is now in Lynnwood. In fact, I live on 36th Avenue West, the same road our school bus traveled to its final destination, Alderwood Manor Grade School. During the early days, the road was a very narrow 2-lane dirt road and was called North Trunk North. I now live just a few blocks from where, as a little 6-year-old, I began my school years. Everything has much changed, but my memories of the past and what seemed to be good life during a tumultuous time remain. So, yeah. So I think what I'm going to do now is ask Betty to share, after 66 years and living here since 2003, what the next chapter of your life is going to be and maybe why, and then anything else you'd like to share, and then we'll have a chance to ask some questions.
That really, hearing it again after I wrote it, brings back a lot of memories. Those were good times and bad times, but you know, as my brothers always said, we didn't really seem to suffer. We did good. We had a lot of food. We had a lot of places to play, and we didn't realize we were poor. Everybody was poor. So hearing it again almost made me cry. Yes, I'm going to start another chapter to my life. I survived an accident that I didn't think I would make at first. When I laid there on the concrete, I thought, this is it. But it's just over 2 months and I'm surviving.
Doing wonderful.
And
Tell her what the doctor said about.
Well, explain what happened.
I used to walk a lot, 2-3 miles a day. And morning was nice and I needed to go to the bank, which was just about 2 blocks from where I live. And I was almost to the bank and crossing the little street that went into Regal Theaters. A motorist, an aggressive motorist, challenged me and kept driving closer and closer, and then he gunned the engine and went directly behind me and startled me so that I tripped and fell. And I hit my right leg, which wasn't considered part of the damage really, but on the curb. And then I just kind of flew and landed on my left side, and I had a broken hip and a broken shoulder, a lot of swelling all over, bruises, and as I laid there I thought, this is how it ends. But luckily it didn't end, and through it all I met the car didn't stop, but I met some wonderful people. The hospital they were so nice, and I can't speak more highly of Manor Care than they were so wonderful there, and the physical therapists were fun, and they wouldn't give up on me. The second day, Noy, my main physical therapist, had me outside walking around the building. He wanted me to get back to uneven ground and be just like I was before. And since then, all my physical therapists have just been great. No walker, no cane, nothing. And everybody was just so wonderful. And that began with when I was first laying there, a young couple stopped, were the first ones to stop. And they called 911. And then another man stopped, and he was quite a muscular man, and he held me in his arms until the aid car came. And when I think of them, I want to cry. I never thought I would ever face anything like that. Anyhow, through this all, I decided I didn't want to live in the area anymore. It was getting too aggressive here. And I'm going to live in Anchorage, Alaska, with my youngest son.
If we let you go.
Yeah, where I'll face maybe bears and a few moose and some other things. But it'll be a change. I have 4 grandchildren whose base is there. They travel the world, so they're only there part of the time. I have a lot of friends there, and it'll be different. But I'm still going to write our news down here. In fact, I have 4 stories already planned. I will be leaving the Edmonds Cemetery Board.
Boo.
But I still will be available for research. My life is going to change. The stories I have planned, one of them I almost finished. It's about Peter Schreiber. And his story has never been written before. He was the man who homesteaded where Schreiber Lake is. And he had a real narrow strip of land which actually went across where Highway 99 was and clear down into the crossroads. So I'll be telling his story. I got in touch through, I don't usually do Facebook, but a young lady who was the great-grandson of Peter Schreiber had posted a picture on Facebook, so I had to get in touch with her. And it's a picture that's never been out in the main public before, of the cabin of Peter Schreiber. And it's surprising where it was located. So that will be one of my stories. I also have been researching for a long time about garbage in Edmonds, which is quite a story. And so I'll be doing that. I'm going to do another one which just came up the other day, which is Memories of Mosher. A historian for Edmonds had an article a couple weeks ago in the Beacon, which he mentioned nobody has ever told the story of Memories of Mosher. Well, we did it here once, a few years ago. And if you know who Gordon Hunter was, the Hunters were pioneers here, and I live on their property. He wrote a lot about areas, but he wrote a story which actually was called Memories of Mosher and McDonald Logging Company. So I will write a bit about Mosher and about his memories. And then I have another story kind of planned. So I just got the use of my left arm back, so I'm still a little shaky with it.
So that's what she's
That's
doing.
what I'm going to do.
So,
You left a little tidbit about when you told me that when the doctors learned of your age.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Tell
Well, it was the last physical therapist I had. I'm just actually finishing up with it. I may continue after I move. But I saw him pick up my file, and as he was reading it, I saw the expression on his face, and he shook his head. He didn't know I was watching it. And after my first day with him, he said, I have to tell you, I was a little biased when I saw your file and the damage that had been done, and that you were 92 years old. I thought, what possibly can I do for her? Well, he got pretty rough, actually. The day after my sessions with him, I was sore, but very improved. So.
Also at Manor Care, when Mom was there, there was a lot of people, getting rehab, but of all the people, she was doing better than anyone there, so, and she was older, mentally, most of them, past improvement.
They pushed me hard. So that,
any questions?
right now I'm living in my little apartment surrounded by boxes with little trails to wander through. And next week I hope that I'm just taking personal belongings because everything will be furnished for me. They should be on their way to Alaska, but I hope to spend April here, and then, yeah. And
So, Betty, can you share just some memories of Edmonds High School? Because what year did you graduate?
1945 I graduated.
Okay.
I think we had 80 in my graduating class. A lot of them, though, were boys who were already gone into the service because they gave them, I don't know how it worked, but it was near the end of World War II, and a lot of them were given credits so they could graduate during half term. So when we actually graduated, even though they were listed on our graduating class, we hardly had any boys left. Our mixers, our dances during the noon hour were girls dancing with girls. I think there maybe were 2 boys, and they were not, I guess they're what you call nerds or something now. I think that the Edmonds School District 15 had the best teachers in the whole United States.
I second it.
Absolutely.
During that period of time,
Yeah,
during that period
Yeah.
of time.
they were, I don't know, they were just fantastic.
Betty?
I remember so many of them. George Hatch was one I remember. He was my history teacher.
He was a wood shop here.
Yeah, and
So talk about walk back in time and how we're going to feature
oh yeah,
teachers.
yeah, publicity here for us.
Yeah, right.
I'm still a member of the Edmonds Memorial Cemetery
We're not
Board
gonna
for
let it
now,
go,
and I will always help out. On July 25th, I won't be here, but the cemetery board will be doing another walk back in time, and we'll be doing the teachers of the school district who are buried at the cemetery. And I should have got the list. We'll be
So-
doing Bob Anderson, Jean
And
Alderwood, if you remember these teachers,
Yep.
Heine Sorensen,
Yep.
and Mr. and Mrs. Banana,
Bill Hamilton.
and Bill Hamilton.
Yeah, right.
So some of you may have had these teachers.
Hamilton's husband.
Actually, all of the teachers will be honored, but these will have enactments of the cemetery board acting the part of the teachers. So,
Do you have my part picked out yet, Ben?
Yeah.
I think Jean
No, I don't think we
Alderwood.
have, but I think we better be doing that, hadn't we?
You usually
Yeah.
tell me who I'm gonna be.
It's always been good.
What do you think for Larry? Jean Alderwood?
Oh, are you asking me or somebody else?
Yeah, I'm asking you. I think you asked if
I've
we had a
already, I've already
part.
drafted it.
Or Bill Hamilton.
Yeah.
I'm just curious in this room, raise your hand if you did go to Edmonds High School. Yeah.
Betty, how many teachers have you identified that are buried in our cemetery?
28.
Okay.
28 teachers
Yeah.
you've identified that are
Yeah.
from the Edmond, the whole Edmonds School
Yeah.
District are buried in the
Yeah.
Edmonds
Wow.
Cemetery.
Yeah, some of them did teach elsewhere, but they lived here. Some of them taught in Edmonds and then elsewhere. But, yeah.
I did have a question. Was Richard Rowe teaching at Edmonds High School in 45?
No, I think he started the following year.
Okay, because both my mother and father had him,
Yes,
and when I went to Edmonds High School, he was my PE teacher.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he goes,
yeah. This is Dale Hoggins, who was a teacher.
No, I-
Yeah,
lived
so
next
he
door
can
to
tell
his
you more about
brother.
Rich
Yeah.
Rowe.
yeah.
Yeah,
his
and my brother, Tom, who was quite an athlete, they were friends for a long time. But I think he came the year after I
Okay, 'cause
He
graduated.
they-
originated out of Ballard. My,
Yeah.
my dad knew him in Ballard,
Yeah.
in the Ballard area.
Yeah,
And he retired and was living in Arlington, and I saw him at the restaurant that I worked at, and I said, Mr. Rowe, and he said, yeah.
but if you took music, you probably remember Bob Anderson.
Well, big time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so he will be one of the main ones that will be depicted.
So out
And
of
that's July 25th at 1 o'clock.
So out of those 28 teachers, how many of them did you have? Did you have some of them?
I did.
Yeah. The one she listed off, I also had.
Mrs. Delameter, May Delameter is one I remember, my second grade teacher. She was a great teacher. And then Adrian Caspers, who taught in the district for 42 years. And she came from the Caspers family of Edmonds, Casper Street.
That had to be Grandpa Casper's wife, I assume. There was a service station on the corner of Third and Casper,
Caspers.
and that
Was her
that
uncle.
Was her uncle? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And where the Methodist Church was part of their property too.
Okay.
It started down in the waterfront and ended up.
Yeah. Okay.
there.
So Betty, a lot of these things you've written about, you've known a little bit personally, but some of them you haven't. How do you do your research? Where do you start? I mean,
I start with my own memories, and then I just go to all the different research places I can until I can't find any more. I did a lot of legal research, so I don't know, it just comes to me how to do it. But a lot of it starts with my own memories. And I read a lot. So I read. Next door at the Genealogy Society, they have the old Edmonds newspapers, a great resource. That's where a lot of mine.
And you are a genealogist as well.
And I am a genealogist as well as a historian. In fact, probably more so. I don't know if you knew, but in one of the comments on My Edmonds News, I think it was from a man who actually lives in Virginia. And he talked not about my being a historian here, but that I'm a historian for a large family, a family which is incorporated. You ever hear of a family incorporating? But we're located all throughout the United States. And we incorporated several years ago. We're a non-profit corporation. I'm on the board of directors, I'm the historian, and I write for them. And we're based in Luray, Virginia, which was, our family settled there in 1739. And in June, we have a reunion and a meeting of the board. And I'm flying down from Alaska to join my daughter, and we're driving to Prescott, Arizona for that reunion.
Right.
And this is the Ruffner family.
The Ruffner family.
And you did a historical writing. How many pages was that?
900 pages. Good. Like this.
How long do you think that took you? Do you have any idea?
2 years.
2 years.
Which is actually pretty fast. And I also did another one which wasn't as large, but I write articles for them.
I'm fascinated. They're incorporated. I love it.
Yeah. How many families incorporate? Yeah.
That's crazy.
Just discovered that my dad worked for your dad in this story you just read. He was deputy of the Snohomish County Sheriff.
Oh.
Dad was a volunteer deputy after World War II in 1946. And I'll be turning that badge over to the museum.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And he drove around a bootlegger's car.
My dad.
He drove, he carried a gun, he wore a uniform, the whole 9 yards, but they were all volunteers that came out of the war.
Actually, my dad had to leave the sheriff's office because he was a hit and run.
When did he leave?
He left in 42.
Oh, in 42. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was hit by a car, I said a hit and run, and he had, this is a good one, 16 breaks in his 2 legs.
Wow. Runs in the family now.
And so his legs were filled with plates. He never limped, never complained. Yeah. So he became representative for servicemen, for veterans for 25 years. Yeah.
So then you ought to talk about the Memorial Day.
Oh, okay.
We'll really miss Betty and all of these things because she's the historian.
Yeah.
She's the one that decides.
Another plug for the cemetery.
Yeah.
Memorial Cemetery. What? May 27th is more?
And we're honoring.
Yeah, whatever Memorial Day falls on.
27th.
The cemetery board will be honoring the MIAs of this area. And I didn't count them. Most of them are from World War II. The MIAs, they're not necessarily buried at the cemetery, but they're on the memorial monument, which Dale and I had a lot to do with that. The memorial monument, which is now in the Edmonds Cemetery, started in Alderwood Manor. And because the American Legion folded, it was moved and then moved again, and it ended up in Edmonds in front of the museum, and they didn't want it. So Dale and I worked hard and had it moved to the cemetery, where it just belongs.
Yeah, where it belongs.
Well, Betty, speaking of that, you did your book, Etched in Stone.
Yeah, that Etched in Stone was a book I wrote
And
about.
so, how did you do the research on, because you didn't know any of these service people.
Oh, I went to school.
Well, I mean, some of them, but there was a
Yeah.
lot you didn't
Yeah, I
know.
didn't.
How did you find out the information? I mean,
There
what kind
again,
of
the
research?
newspapers, ancestry through the military records, and just research. In fact, some of them, I actually found that I could access records I had no idea we could. I went into our War Department. I even went into Japanese records, which I just had translated. One of the young men was in a Liberty ship off Alaska that's sunk, and our government said it broke apart. Well, actually, it was hit by a submarine, a Japanese submarine, and it was from the Japanese records I found the true story. So, that was a work of the heart, because a lot of times I got so busy in my research and the tears were falling, but I worked all night just researching. I shed a lot of tears over that book.
And you're going to have a place in your son's home up there, an office where she can write.
Yeah.
And,
Well, the room her room up there, they may really show you a picture. It's bigger than her whole apartment right
Yeah.
now. It's huge, yes.
Also, my son is putting in a gym for me.
And you're going from what, a twin bed to you think it might be a king? It's a big bed. It's a big bed. She might get lost in there.
This house
Yeah.
is like.
She might get lost
It
in
is
there.
a huge house. Yeah.
For those who are interested, the booklet about etched in stone, this building has a copy. So if you want a biographical sketch of all those men who lost their time from World War I to date, from our community, she has developed that sketch. And it's very, very well researched. It's wonderful.
Actually, I've updated it, which Dale wants to have since that time, a lot more, the government has released a lot more information, so I found out a lot more on it. So in the new book, I told about the final move of the monument and more stories about boys I couldn't find anything out before finally it came out. So I'll send it to Dale and he can see what he can do with it.
Anything
Yeah.
else? Okay, well, Betty, we're glad to hear that
Yeah.
there'll be some further what? You have something?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yes, I
All
know.
right. Join me in saying goodbye to Betty. I'm going to lead you in 3 cheers. Ready? Hip, hip!
Hooray!
Hip, hip!
Hooray!
Hip, hip!
Hooray!
We love you, honey.
And we're glad to hear that you're still going to write. But you can tell why now the city of Lynnwood felt that she needed to be named the Lynnwood's historian and gave her the key to the city.
Yeah.
That was in November,
Yeah,
so
then
they don't
after
do
that.
that very often. So
Yeah.
she could, I hope you're packing the key to take to Anchorage.
I am. Oh, and going to Keys, just over a week ago, this genealogy society gave me the key to their society.
As you're getting ready to leave.
So we thank you for coming and hope you've enjoyed meeting our historian, and you can stick around and talk to Betty and help yourself to more cookies and coffee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Betty.
you for doing that.